Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Writers Podcast. I'm here today with writer Peter Pontsa. Hello, Peter. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent. And we're here to talk about your first book, which is titled Outfoxed and Inspector William Fox Adventure. And can you give us a little taste of what the book's about?
Okay, I can give you a little bit. Yeah, it's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got police procedurals in it. It has some thriller in it. It has a little bit of romance, a little historical stuff. It begins basically in 1421
Wow.
when the Emperor of China sends out a fleet of ships to sail the oceans, and they've been gone for 2 years. And during that time, they visit different cities here and there around the planet. And then my
Okay.
story starts with the one of the ships landing in Nova Scotia and leaving some treasure. And then Tracy Jordan, who is an archaeologist from the United States, her and her father have been searching to
Mm,
find this treasure for years. And finally, she does manage to find the location.
mm.
But the cultural minister of China also would like to get his hands on it. Rather than get his hands dirty himself, he gets to try it to go get her, the kidnapper. Her
Mm.
childhood sweetheart is Inspector William Fox of the
Ah,
RCMP,
I
and
see.
he has to find her. And he gets his friend. Well, he's a friend now, but in the original story, the original novel, he was just an FBI agent who came along because Tracy is American. And so
Okay.
they have a heck of a story of running across the country trying to chase these guys and trying to get Tracy back.
Mm.
And we do get into a little political intrigue because China's
Mm.
involved as well.
Right.
So it has a lot of. I've been told some one of my reviewers called it a tapestry, and I thought, well, looking back on it, perhaps maybe it is because it does have a lot of layers to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get into that a bit more, but I would like to find out a little bit more about yourself to see how your background has influenced the book that you wrote. And I can see that you had a very interesting career as um, a dental specialist, and you were doing a lot of nonfiction type articles, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's how I started. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend of mine encouraged me to do some. Well, they considered me a reasonably competent dental technician, so they
Mm.
suggested I write some articles. So I started writing articles in the trade magazines,
Very good.
and then when I was in business with my dental supply company, we were encouraged to do advertising there, but also while we were having our articles in there to more or less reflect the products that we were selling, because
Mm.
most of the stuff that we were selling had to have a certain amount of ability and there was a certain amount of instruction to it. So I would be
Okay.
writing what we call techno-clinical because they were partly technical and partly clinical. So the dentist would also be able to follow. So I wrote
Mm-hmm.
quite a few of those for a while. And then my next foray was the editor who became a friend of mine wanted to start a denturist magazine. He tried to buy one, but they didn't want to sell. So I
Mm.
said, why don't we just make our own, and we'll get some people. I'll be the editor for the first time and we'll get a few, you've got the advertisers. We'll
Mm-hmm.
get a few people to write some articles. So we started a denturist magazine and I was the associate publisher for that for about 5 years. So I
Mm.
was involved in that. But then when I started getting a little on in years, I wanted to retire, and
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't know what to do with myself. And I said to my wife, I think I'm going to start writing in another area, which I think might be interesting. So when we signed the paperwork to sell the company, the
Mm-hmm.
next day I went to the Orangeville Library and I started a workshop on writing fiction,
Mm.
and that was my first step out. And so
Cool.
I joined with a group of writers in the Orangeville area, and we did about 5 or 6 workshops. And
Mm-hmm.
then I felt I needed a little bit more. how can I say, a little bit more experience. So there was a
Mhm.
course at the University of Waterloo, which was
Mm.
called Advanced Fiction Writing, and I signed up for that, and I did that too as well. Hopefully,
Okay.
it did get rid of some of the rough edges and put me in the right direction. So
Right. Was that an online course, or did you
it was an online course.
online
Yeah,
course?
yeah.
Yeah. Now how did you find that? Especially after writing so many nonfiction articles?
Well, I thought it was very good. It was very enlightening. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, because like even when we're writing dental articles, you have your opening, your middle, and then you still have your closing. It's basically, but
Right.
what I found the transition was now you got characters that you have to involve, and you got plot lines and themes
Mhm.
that weren't in. Yeah, it's a different kind of writing altogether. But you do have the stage, the first, second, third stage that you work with, which is I think a traditional Greek style. Um,
Mhm.
yeah.
Very good. Now, during your dental career, were you, a reader at all of fiction or of nonfiction, or just a reader in general?
Oh yeah, I did read. I did read quite a
Mhm.
bit. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And
Would
any
be
particular
would you
favorite
look
genres?
was with crime fiction. I like
Okay.
I really liked David Baldacci and David Silva and a number of others like that. I mean, if you
Okay.
look behind me, there's a whole stack of books here. We have a little
Right.
mini library here. So yeah, I did
Right.
read. Yeah, I did read
Right.
quite a bit. Yeah.
And, um, now that you've, taken this step into fiction writing, how have you found that experience, opposed to your nonfiction?
Oh, completely different.
Mhm.
Um, What I did before was basically a necessity. It was work. It
Right.
was basically work. Okay,
Yeah,
how do you
sure.
sell the
Yep.
product? How do you make it work? Well, okay,
Yep.
write the article and set down all the instructions. No, this is
Mhm.
this is different for me because it's more stimulating and it's more
Okay.
a different type of challenge altogether.
Okay. Now, I see from your background that you had 2 interesting hobbies. One was, with race cars, specifically British, and the others, you took taekwondo. So, uh, I was half expecting you to say, that Ian Fleming was one of your favorite writers.
Oh yeah, he is. I do have a number of them here, and
Okay.
I'm a real James Bond fan.
Okay. So that, leads me to ask, what is your all-time favorite sports car?
Right now, it's an Aston Martin DB9.
Ah, okay. Very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
But I did start off with MGs. I've had about 4 or 5 MGBs,
Mhm.
and then I still have a Jaguar XK8, which
Oh,
I still have it. It was actually I still have my old license plates on it, Dentco it was my company car,
right. Oh,
and,
okay.
but I also used that for track day,
Mhm.
and I just didn't jump into a car and say, "Okay, I'm gonna go join a team." We had track day, first of all, I should say that we started with the Jaguar Club. The Jaguar
Mhm.
Club across North America and Mexico had what they call the slalom race, which is basically, oh, well, they have first of all, it looks like an arena, and then
Mm.
there's a figure eight, and then then you go around again. So, and they have pylons. You're supposed to do
Right.
this in the shortest amount of time without knocking the pylons over. And so that's where we started at the Jaguar Club level.
Okay.
And at one point, one year I did come in third. I actually I
Mm.
still have the trophy for, I
Nice.
think it was 47 seconds. And that was the best time in my category for North America and Mexico. And
Very
the
nice.
fellows in my group were all doing very, very well too. So they decided that maybe perhaps we should go and do chump car racing.
Mm.
Chump car racing originated in the States, and basically that's where you could buy a car for $500, throw in a roll cage, make it safe,
Mhm.
but it has to be really cheap, and then, we started racing. We got suits, we got helmets, we made sure we had the proper Nomex equipment and everything, and the safety harnesses and all that, and we
Mhm.
built these cars from scratch. We just took these old cars and threw all the seats and everything out till there was hardly anything left, and then, the lighter they were, the better they were, and then, we started racing, and that was a lot of fun too.
Mm.
Expensive, mind you, but between 10 guys, it was
Yeah.
alright, right?
Right.
But yeah, that was on my bucket list that I did. Yeah, that was a lot of
Cool.
fun too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And, what about the taekwondo? What brought that about?
Well, idolism, I suppose. I had I had just I had just had a lot of time on my hands. I actually took Japanese karate
Mm,
because there used to be a karate studio at the end of my street when I was a kid, when I was about 18. And then actually many years later, I felt I needed something like that. So I started again with um, taekwondo because I thought it might be better than the Japanese. And
mm,
I spent 4.5 years with a gentleman called Mr. Kim. And I went from white to second degree. Now, this was world taekwondo karate because there's also international
mhm.
taekwondo, which we shouldn't get into because actually it's political
Oh,
as
okay.
opposed to the north and south of Korea, you know. But
Okay.
yeah, I spent many years there, and the only other option I had was, you know, if I wanted to go to Korea and spend some time at what they call the real school, the Kikiwan school, which is where you get your certificates. You have to write a thesis, and you get your certificates and become a full fledged master. And I didn't wanna do that because, I wanted to be at home in the evenings. Most of the karate
Mm,
clubs are, you know, afternoon and evenings, and that wasn't kind of a career step I wanted to make.
right.
But, I'd also had injured my eye too. I had a detached retina.
Mm,
So I thought, you know, that's gotta be it. So I pulled back. I mean, I still
mhm,
practice at home. I have a gym in the basement where I still do my patterns or my kata, as some people in karate call it a kata. We call
mhm.
it patterns or forms or whatever.
Okay.
Basically, you've probably seen that. You probably know what they are, and you've
Yeah,
probably seen them.
yeah.
So I
Is
still
that
practice.
yeah, is that kind of a form of meditation for you? Like, do you work out writing problems maybe when you're doing it or
Well, not necessarily, but I mean, it can
uh,
be done. I mean, I work on most of my writing, problems when I'm walking in the
oh,
we're not
okay.
too far from a conservation area, so my wife and I
Nice.
both walk in there.
Okay.
But for the karate, you're right, I do the workout, and I have a little place where I have a little Buddha, and then I just sit
Mm,
there and I meditate, and,
mhm.
I try to clear my mind from all of the unnecessary things that we get inundated with during the day.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, with those 2 things, did they did you incorporate them at all into your writing? Because they
Oh,
seem like they're
yes. Oh, yeah.
prime material for helping out, flesh out a fiction story.
Sure, like my inspector, William Fox is,
Mhm.
a martial artist, and
Okay.
there's a few scenes in the first book where he actually does do some pretty amazing flying kicks and stuff,
Okay.
and there's a section where there's some pretty fancy driving too, where he's, behind the wheel.
Mm.
So, yeah.
And do you find that you are able to 'cause one of the big challenges for writers with fight scenes is to stage it, because unlike a movie or at the, filmed, medium where you can block out fights and make it very exciting, to do that in writing form is a lot more, challenging, and, you wanna explain the fight to the reader, but you also don't wanna get bogged down in pages of explanation as well. So is that a bit of a balancing act for you, or you find that pretty easy to write those kinds of scenes?
No, it can be because you know, we're very descriptive.
Mhm.
One of the things I did, get bogged down with in my writing for, dental stuff is, very descriptive stuff. So,
Right.
when we were doing the fight scenes, the first couple of fight scenes I did were very, very descriptive, and when we looked
Mhm.
at editing them afterwards, they were too long, so
Mhm.
I had to cut them back. In
Right.
fact, and there was a few said times when I asked my wife, I said, "Let's go through this." You know,
Mhm.
no one's gonna get hurt, you know? We're gonna try and do this, so
Right.
when people read it, it's plausible and it works.
Yeah.
So, we did a few of the moves and they worked pretty well. So, and then just to describe them in the most simplest way that we weren't gonna bog them down, the readers down with too much detail.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have a writing routine? Are you a morning writer, evening writer?
Uh,
How does that work for you?
well, I try to write, in the morning,
Mhm,
uh, and, right now, I've been writing because, I'm in Ontario in Canada, and, I've been writing pretty well almost every day during the winter because there really isn't much to do around here. I don't ski,
mhm,
and there's not much, to do that way, so,
mhm.
I do a lot of writing that way. And of course,
Okay.
we have our little vacation we take every year for about 3 weeks, and I plan writing there. Like this year, we were in Costa Rica for 3 weeks. In the
Mhm.
morning, I would write, and in the afternoon, we'd go for a walk on the beach and maybe go for a swim. But
Right.
that would be our way of getting along. And I actually wrote about 7 chapters over
Mm.
the 3 weeks. I know it may not seem
No,
a lot
that's
to some people. To me,
yeah.
I mean, I write a little bit more concisely, so for me, it was fine.
Mhm.
But yeah, I try to write as much as I can. Like even before this morning, I did a paragraph before we got started today,
Very good.
and perhaps I might continue afterwards as well. So
Okay. And do you have a word goal, or do you just write a scene, or like how do you work that for yourself?
well, if I can write a chapter or a scene, or
Mhm.
that works for me.
Right.
Even if I write like if I've got let's say I'm at chapter 51 and it's at the end of the day, 3 o'clock or something, and I might just write a couple of a paragraph or so for the next day. So when I come
Mm.
in the morning, I say, okay, this is where I should start, or this is a good idea. I may not like it, or I might just continue with it.
Right.
But yeah,
Right. Okay. Now let's turn a little bit more to and focus on the book again. And uh, Inspector William Fox, is this character someone that you intend to create a series around?
I do. I'm actually working on the second one right now.
Okay.
So I have mentioned to a few folks that I might do 3 or 4,
Okay.
but we'll see how much material I have. I
Hmm.
have writer friends who've read the book and said, "You've got lots of material, so you could probably keep it going." I
Right.
mean, if you yeah, it's possible. Uh,
Okay.
you can
But
always find
you haven't mapped it out in your head yet?
no, no,
No? So you're just
no.
taking a book at a time? Each book is a
Yeah.
standalone is gonna
Well,
be a standalone? You don't have
I'm
to have
going
read the previous one to know what's going on in the current one kinda thing?
well, what I'm gonna do is a synopsis at the beginning, like a lot of authors
Okay.
do. So if you do if you start with the second or third, you're gonna have a little bit of background before you get into it. But yeah, I
Right.
would like to see it as a standalone too. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Um, Now it's interesting that you've made the decision to base your is the story based mostly in Canada or
This one? No, no, it's in Asia.
in Asia?
Some of
Oh,
it's in
okay.
yeah, some of it's in Asia. We do spend some time in Nova Scotia, a little bit of time in New York, and then,
Okay.
some time in, Hong Kong.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
how does a RCMP officer get out of Canada? This is my
Okay.
ignorance. I don't, I'm a
No,
little surprised that he would be doing that.
they're actually, capable of leaving on special there's a special, branch,
Okay.
that can leave. In fact, there's about 34 or 35, RCMP, officers, in different embassies around the world.
Oh,
Who are
okay.
there like liaison between, our government and, the government through the police forces. But
Mhm.
there's also a multitask force too here in Canada that can, if we have a crime here that leads to another country, that
Mhm.
they can leave and go. I mean, we're not talking about just the regular, police officers who, we're
Okay.
talking about the specialists, and we do have specialists for
I'm
that.
embarrassed to say that I didn't know that this existed. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Um, how did you, research this? Did you have end up with a contact at the RCMP, or,
No,
do you
no,
just
no,
all
just
online?
a lot of this stuff is just, CBC reports
Okay.
and on the internet, and the RCMP have their own website and stuff like that, so most of the stuff has been gleaned, from these areas and double checked and to make
And
sure
have
that Hmm?
your first book's been out for a while now, so it was December, right?
January of 2023.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, Jan
yeah, or
okay.
yeah, that's the
Did
publishing date, but it came out on February, but yeah.
Okay, and did you get any feedback from any people saying, "Hey, the RCMP don't do this," or anything like that, or
No,
no?
no, not really.
Okay, that's good. That must be a nice feeling that, 'cause there are readers that just love to jump on the littlest mistakes and point them out to the
Well,
writers.
well, I did have a close friend whose family's in the OPP, and when I told her about my book, when I read her when I read the book, synopsis to her. She said, "No, they can't leave the country." I said, "Well," I left it at that, but then, I didn't wanna get into an argument with her, but, uh, but they're there, and they are out there. They can do that.
Okay. So, is, the other characters there, you have, Special Agent Patrick Reilly and, of course, Tracy Jordan, his, childhood friend. Are these characters going to be in the subsequent novels as well, or
They are, yeah.
okay.
Like the second one I'm working on right now, I'm around chapter 51, and they're
Mm,
both in there. Of course, Tracy doesn't, have such a large part in the second book, but, she's
okay.
in there too, yeah.
Okay, so there's no, like, romantic triangle thing going on between the 3 of them, or
No, but this is very interesting. I should mention this to you, Lou.
okay.
When we did the, editing, my
Uh-huh.
editor said, "Why don't you instead of having Patrick, why don't you just give her a female part, make it Patricia? Then you've
Mm.
got maybe a triangle between Tracy and Patricia because
Ah.
Patricia's helping him." So
Mhm.
for a lark, I took Patrick's a whole chapter of Patrick's point of view, and I changed the clothing to female clothing and some of the attitude, and darn it if it doesn't work. But we were so far into the book, I just didn't wanna rearrange the whole story, but you know what?
Right.
It was really working well. I thought, "Yeah,
Oh, okay.
maybe for
Okay,
another
good.
time," but it's
Yeah,
it's possible to do. Yeah,
because whether it's something that you're interested or not, romantic subplots are a big selling point with a lot of readers, so,
yeah.
that's something to be aware of. Um, I'm curious as to, uh, choosing, because you're in Canada, was there any pressure from your editor to base more of it in the States or have just, like, not even have an RCMP character in it, or did they really enjoy that?
No, I didn't get anything from them on that, but
Okay.
I have to explain, I didn't go through a traditional publisher, this is a hybrid, so
Okay.
I was in more control of the editing process than you would be
Ah,
with a publisher, okay? So,
right.
a mainstream publisher might have more influence, but,
Mhm.
in this case, no.
Sure. And, did you have, like, beta readers? Like, I
I
don't know,
did.
besides
I
your
belong
wife?
no, no, not just my wife,
Okay.
but I did have a number of them because I do belong to a group. This is actually a group in Alliston, Ontario called the
Okay.
Wordsmiths, and we used to
Okay.
meet twice a month, okay? And so
Mhm.
I had a number of them there that were reading my books and giving me feedback. Yeah.
Alright. And, how helpful was that for you?
Actually pretty good. I got some interesting feedback back, yeah. But, I
Okay.
think the best help I got was from, my editor because she'd worked with the RCMP before, and she also
Oh,
was
okay.
had been she'd also had been in Hong Kong.
Mm,
So, when we did a lot of the scenes and settings in Hong Kong, she was actually quite good with that. Yeah.
right. You didn't actually travel to Hong Kong for research or anything like that?
No. No, I
Oh,
didn't.
Google Maps was
Google
your friend?
Maps. Yeah,
Yeah,
Google Maps, yeah.
very cool. And what, what is the premise for your second novel, or is that too early to say?
Well, I can give a little bit of it away. Actually, in the first novel, Uh, there's a Mr. Kim is the instructor at the taekwondo club where, William works out, and,
Okay.
he hasn't seen his sister since they were kids,
Mm,
and, she was smuggled into North Korea, and, somehow there's a little note that sniggles out, and,
mm,
that she may wanna get out, so that's the premise. It's gonna be built around a family connection,
okay.
and hopefully there's a way of them all getting together. But I
Right.
don't wanna give too much of it away, but,
Sure.
that's part of it. The other part is, um, because of what's going on with AI and microchips and all that sort of stuff,
Mhm.
William's father is, getting involved in the microchip industry.
Mm,
He was in the first book, he was an ambassador in Seoul, Korea, so he had some contacts. And if you understand, South Korea is one of the another lar besides Taiwan, is another very large area where they make a lot of, microchips, that's Sony.
Okay.
has a big factory down there just south of Seoul. So there's going to be a little bit of that involved there too. Yeah,
Okay.
so it'd be
Uh, and as to the character of William Fox, is there any sort of background history for him that's a driving force for him, or is he kind of like more of a James Bond kind of guy?
um well, I really I've really done I haven't really done a lot of background on him, and basically all I did
Hmm.
in the first book was that he was born in Montreal, and his father was stationed in Korea,
Mm.
and um, Tracy's father was an archaeologist working in Korea and Seoul as well, and they were childhood sweethearts,
Okay.
and they broke up for some reason or
Hmm.
other, and then he moved back to Montreal with his father after,
Okay.
but the mother is divorced from the father because of what happened.
Hmm.
Jamie, who was William's brother, gets injured, and William feels guilt about the whole thing. So there's a little bit of a conflict
Okay.
of what's going on. But that's as far as I went back. Also, there is some more about William that he's graduated from McGill University, and he has a background in accounting. He
Mm.
first worked with the RCMP as a forensics accountant until he
All
got
right.
ambushed by some gangsters, and so yeah, it goes on from there. But yeah,
Okay. Okay. And do you have a target date for when the second book will be out?
yeah, I'm looking somewhere around October. Like,
Okay.
yeah, we're
Very
like I've
good.
got yeah. So that's is that it then?
Yeah.
Got
And do you write? Are you writing anything else besides the series? Like, have you done short stories or anything? Or
I did a number of them for the Wordsmiths.
right.
I have a bunch of them, but they're very
Hmm.
short. I was
Okay.
hoping to perhaps publish them someday.
Right.
Because right now, I should also mention that my wife also writes too. So what we
Okay.
decided to do was start our own publishing company. So it's called
Oh.
Iconic Scribes Press. So
Okay.
we're going to be publishing her books through that, and my second book through that, and probably the first one
Mm.
as well. We'll have to republish it. But
Okay.
yeah, so yeah.
And what kind of fiction does your wife write?
Um, this is well, their book is a little bit more mystic.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
So you're saying fantasy or
yeah, it's sort of a fantasy, if you want to call it that. I
okay,
mean, the premise
urban
is
fantasy?
a premise is the man has had some bad dreams, and he sees a psychic and finds out that in a previous life he was murdered, and his
Hmm.
murderer is still alive, and
Yeah.
so
Cool.
you can see where it's going, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Very
So I
cool.
don't know what would you call that?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
it a fantasy or it is a
Supernatural thriller.
yeah,
Yep.
that's it. Supernatural thriller would work better, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And your books can be found at the usual places: Amazon, Indigo,
Yeah. Yes,
Barnes
Amazon,
Noble,
Indigo. Yeah,
your
they're on
website,
my website. Yeah, yeah,
and your website is just your name.
yeah. PeterThomasPonsa.com.
Okay. Very good. Is there anything that you'd like to mention that hasn't come up during the course of the interview?
Oh, not really. I think we covered all the bases. I mean,
Very
I'm
cool.
going to be doing some readings in the next little bit, and that's
Okay.
basically it. They can
And
see that on my website.
right. Okay. Very good. Well, I want to thank you for the time, Peter,
Okay.
especially since we had troubles getting this arranged in the first place. And I apologize for those technical difficulties, but I appreciated your patience as I straightened those all out.
Okay. It's been great. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. Bye
Okay,
now.
take care now. Bye bye. And that's it. All right. Thank you very much. I will put it together in the next couple of days and I'll send you a link when it's up.
Okay. Sounds great, Lou.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
Good luck with your next book. And maybe we'll talk to you when that one's out.
Okay. Sounds good. Take care.
Okay. Take care now.
All
Bye bye.
right.